El ganadero le dio comida, sin saber que la tenía hambre de algo más. He was a cattle farmer who had spent most of his life on the same land. Every morning began before sunrise. The air was cold, the ground was damp, and the animals were already awake. He moved slowly but steadily, guided by habit more than thought. His life followed a simple pattern: feed the cattle, check the fences, clean the sheds, and prepare for the next day. He did not complain. This life was all he knew, and in many ways it had shaped him into a quiet, patient man. He lived alone in a small house near the fields. The walls were old, the furniture worn, but everything had its place. There were no extra decorations, no signs of luxury. His evenings were usually silent. After dinner, he would sit outside, watching the sky change colors as the sun went down. Sometimes he thought about the past, but mostly he focused on the present. The land demanded attention, and it left little room for dreams. That afternoon was like any other. The sun was high, and the heat made the work harder than usual. He had finished checking the far fence and was walking back toward the house when he noticed something unusual near the dirt road. At first, he thought it was a shadow or a pile of clothes left behind. But as he came closer, he realized it was a person. A young woman was sitting on the ground, her back against a tree. Her head was slightly lowered and her arms were wrapped around her knees. She looked thin and tired, as if she had been walking for a long time without rest. Her clothes were dusty and her shoes looked worn out. She did not notice him at first. The farmer stopped a few steps away. He was not used to seeing strangers on his land. People rarely passed through that area, and when they did, they usually kept moving. For a moment he wondered if he should turn back and mind his own business. Life had taught him to be careful, but something about the way she sat there, so still and quiet, made him pause. He cleared his throat softly so he would not scare her. She looked up quickly, her eyes wide with surprise. For a second fear crossed her face, but it faded when she saw that he was just an older man in work clothes, holding nothing but his hat. "Are you okay?" he asked in a calm voice. She hesitated before answering. Her voice, when it came, was low and weak. She said she was tired and that she had not eaten since the day before. She did not explain how she ended up there or where she was going. She seemed unsure, as if she was used to people asking questions that led nowhere good. The farmer nodded slowly. He did not push for details. He knew that hunger could make words hard to find. Without saying much else, he told her to wait and walked back toward his house. She watched him go, unsure if he would return. Inside the house, he moved with purpose. He took out some bread, a bit of cheese, and a bottle of water. It was not much, but it was enough for a proper meal. He placed everything on a small tray, then hesitated for a moment. After thinking, he added an apple as well. It felt like the right thing to do. When he returned, she was still there, sitting in the same place. Her shoulders relaxed when she saw him coming back. He handed her the food without ceremony, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. She accepted it carefully, almost as if she feared it might disappear. She thanked him quietly and began to eat. She did not rush. Each bite was slow, thoughtful. It was clear she had learned to make food last. The farmer stood nearby, giving her space but keeping an eye on her. He noticed how her hands trembled slightly and how her eyes kept dropping to the ground between bites. As she ate, silence settled between them. It was not an uncomfortable silence, but a heavy one. The kind filled with unspoken stories. The farmer felt a strange pull in his chest. He had helped people before, neighbors or workers passing through, but this felt different. There was a loneliness around her that he recognized, one that went deeper than simple hunger. After a while, she finished eating and wiped her hands on her clothes. She looked up at him again, this time with a softer expression. There was gratitude in her eyes, but also something else, something he could not name. It was as if she wanted to say more but did not know how. He asked her where she planned to go next. She shrugged and said she would figure it out. Her answer was honest but uncertain. It told him she had no clear destination, only the need to keep moving. The farmer thought for a moment. He told her she could rest there for a while if she wanted. There was shade, and no one would bother her. He did not invite her into the house, not yet, but the offer itself was meaningful. It showed care without pressure. She nodded and thanked him again. As he turned to leave, he felt an odd heaviness in his steps. He told himself he had done enough. He had given food, water, and a safe place to rest. That should have been the end of it, but as he walked away, he glanced back once more. She was sitting quietly, holding the empty bottle, staring at the horizon. In that moment, he realized something he could not fully understand yet. Her hunger had not been only for food. There was a deeper need in her eyes, a quiet longing for something unseen. And though he did not know it then, that simple act of kindness was about to change both of their lives in ways neither of them expected. The next morning, the farmer woke up before the sun, as he always did. The sky was still dark and the air carried a quiet chill. He followed his usual routine, but his mind was not as calm as before. His thoughts kept returning to the young woman by the tree. He told himself there was no reason to worry. She had eaten. She was resting. By now, she had probably moved on. Still, the thought stayed with him like a soft echo he could not silence. As the first light spread across the fields, he walked toward the barns. The animals greeted him with familiar sounds, and he focused on his work, hoping the routine would clear his mind. He checked the water, filled the feed, and repaired a loose board on the fence. His hands moved automatically, but his heart felt distracted. Every so often, he found himself looking toward the dirt road. After finishing his chores, he finally walked back toward the tree where he had seen her the day before. Part of him expected to find the place empty. Another part hoped she might still be there. As he approached, he saw her sitting in the shade, her back resting against the same tree. She looked slightly better than before, but still tired. When she noticed him, she stood up slowly, as if unsure whether she was welcome. He greeted her with a simple nod. She returned it, her expression cautious but calm. He asked if she had slept well. She said she had rested a little, though the ground was hard and her sleep light. Her voice was steadier now, but there was still a quiet sadness behind her words. He offered her some water again, and she accepted it with a grateful smile. They stood there for a moment, unsure of what to say next. The silence felt different this time. It was less heavy, but still full of things left unsaid. He asked her if she was still hungry. She hesitated, then shook her head slightly. She said the food from the day before had helped more than he could know. But then she looked away, her eyes drifting toward the open fields. The farmer noticed that while her body might have been less hungry, something else still weighed on her. They sat down on a fallen log nearby. The farmer did not rush the conversation. He had learned over the years that some stories only come out when given time. Slowly, she began to speak. She did not share details, but she hinted at a life that had been difficult. She talked about moving from place to place, about promises that had not lasted, and about feeling invisible in a world that never seemed to stop. As she spoke, the farmer listened without interruption. He did not judge or offer advice. He simply listened. That alone seemed to bring her some relief. Her shoulders relaxed and her words flowed more easily. She admitted that what she missed most was not comfort or money, but the feeling of being cared for, even in small ways. The farmer felt a quiet ache in his chest. He understood that feeling better than he liked to admit. His life had been full of work, but empty of conversation. He realized that in trying to help her, he had also found someone who understood his own loneliness. He told her a little about himself. He spoke of the land, of how his days passed in silence, and how the seasons were his only markers of time. He did not speak of regret, but it was there, hidden between his words. She listened closely, nodding now and then as if each sentence mattered. As the sun climbed higher, the heat returned. He suggested she move closer to the house where there was more shade. She followed him slowly, careful not to assume too much. Near the house, he showed her a spot under the roof where she could sit and rest. He brought her another piece of fruit and some bread, just in case. She accepted it, but this time her thanks felt deeper, more personal. Throughout the day, she stayed nearby. She did not interfere with his work, but she watched with interest. When he struggled with a heavy bucket, she stood up and helped without being asked. Her help was small but sincere. He thanked her, surprised by how natural it felt to work alongside someone. As the hours passed, the farmer noticed a change in her. She smiled more often and her eyes seemed brighter. Still, there were moments when her gaze drifted, as if she were searching for something she could not see. He realized that her hunger was not something he could satisfy with food alone. In the late afternoon, they sat together again, watching the sky. She asked him why he had helped her. The question caught him off guard. He thought for a long moment before answering. He said he did it because it felt right, because everyone deserves kindness when they are at their lowest. She nodded, but her eyes filled with emotion. She said that kindness was rare in her life, and that sometimes it felt more painful than cruelty because it reminded her of what she had lost. Her words stayed with him. As the sun began to set, she stood up and said she should leave soon. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. The farmer felt an unexpected weight in his chest. He did not want her to go, yet he knew he could not ask her to stay without understanding what she truly needed. They stood there, facing the fading light. Neither of them spoke for a long time. In that silence, the farmer began to understand something important. Her hunger was not just for food or rest. It was a hunger for connection, for meaning, and for someone to see her not as a problem, but as a person. As she finally turned toward the road, he watched her with a mix of concern and hope. He did not know what the next day would bring, but he knew that their meeting was not just a passing moment. It was the beginning of something deeper, something that would challenge both of them to face the emptiness they had been carrying for far too long. The woman did not leave that evening. When she reached the edge of the road, she stopped and looked back once more. The farmer was still standing near the house, watching quietly. There was no force in his eyes, no demand, just a calm presence. After a long moment, she walked back slowly and asked if she could stay until morning. Her voice was careful, as if she feared the answer. He did not reply right away. He thought about the quiet life he had built, about the habits that kept his days simple and predictable. Then he looked at her tired face and nodded. He told her she could stay, but only as long as she felt safe and comfortable. There were no conditions, no expectations, just a place to rest. He showed her a small room near the back of the house. It was clean but plain, with a narrow bed and a small window. She thanked him again, more quietly this time. As she closed the door, the farmer felt something shift inside him. The house no longer felt as empty as it had the day before. That night he lay awake longer than usual. He listened to the familiar sounds of the farm, but now there was something new among them, a sense of shared space. He wondered if he had made the right choice. He reminded himself that kindness did not need permission. Eventually, sleep came. The next morning, the smell of simple food filled the house. The woman had woken early and tried to help. She stood awkwardly in the kitchen, unsure of what she was allowed to touch. When he entered, she apologized for assuming. He told her it was fine. Her effort mattered more than perfection. They ate together at the small table. It was quiet at first, but not uncomfortable. She asked about the animals, and he explained their routines. He spoke more than he usually did, surprised by how easy the words came. She listened closely, asking thoughtful questions. For the first time in years, he felt truly heard. After breakfast, he went out to work and she followed him outside. She did not get in the way. Instead, she watched and learned. When he carried tools, she offered to hold them. When he paused to rest, she stood beside him, looking out at the fields. The work felt lighter, even though it was the same as always. As the days passed, a quiet rhythm formed between them. She stayed close but respected his space. She helped where she could, and when she could not, she simply listened. Sometimes they talked about small things, like weather or memories of places they had seen. Other times they sat in silence, watching the sky change color. The farmer noticed how she slowly began to change. She laughed once when an animal acted in a funny way. The sound surprised both of them. It was soft but real. Her eyes began to carry warmth instead of constant worry. Still, there were moments when she seemed distant, as if part of her was somewhere else. One afternoon, while resting under a tree, she finally spoke about her past. Not in detail, but enough to explain the weight she carried. She talked about losing trust, about moving through places where she never felt welcome, and about learning to expect very little from people. Her words were simple, but they held deep emotion. The farmer listened quietly. He did not interrupt or offer solutions. He understood that some pain only wanted to be acknowledged. When she finished, he told her she did not owe him anything. Not stories, not help, not gratitude. She could stay as long as she needed or leave when she felt ready. Her eyes filled with emotion, but she did not cry. Instead, she nodded slowly. That moment created a bond neither of them had planned. It was not built on promises, but on honesty. As time moved on, the woman began to find purpose in small tasks. She cleaned, organized, and learned the names of the animals. She took pride in being useful, but more importantly, she felt valued. The farmer noticed that he began to look forward to her presence. The days felt less long, the nights less silent. Still, confusion lived quietly between them. The farmer felt a growing care for her, but he was careful not to cross unseen lines. He did not want to misunderstand her need for safety as something else. She, on the other hand, struggled with feelings she did not fully understand. She admired his kindness, his patience, and the way he never asked for more than she could give. One evening, as they watched the sunset, she spoke again. She said that food had saved her body, but being seen had saved her spirit. The farmer did not reply right away. He felt a lump in his throat. He had never thought of himself as someone who could change another person's life. As the light faded, both of them understood that what had started as a simple act of kindness had grown into something deeper. Not something loud or dramatic, but something steady and real. A shared understanding that some hunger cannot be named easily, and some healing comes not from grand gestures, but from quiet presence. Neither of them knew what the future would bring. But for the first time in a long while, both felt less alone. And that in itself was enough to keep them moving forward together, one careful step at a time. The change did not come suddenly. It arrived slowly, like the seasons on the farm. Days passed, then weeks, and life settled into a new rhythm. The woman stayed, not because she was asked to, but because the space allowed her to breathe. The farmer never questioned her presence. He treated her as part of the day, like the sunrise or the evening wind. Yet inside him, thoughts began to grow heavier. He was a man who had lived most of his life without expecting much from others. Now, he found himself noticing small things about her. The way she paused before speaking. The way she watched the animals with quiet care. The way she thanked him every day, even when nothing special had happened. These details stayed with him longer than he wanted to admit. He worried about crossing a line he did not understand. He knew she came from a place of pain and uncertainty. He feared that his kindness might be mistaken for something else, or worse, that her need for safety might grow into dependence. That thought troubled him deeply. He wanted to help her stand on her own, not replace one fragile support with another. The woman felt her own struggle. For the first time in a long while, she felt calm. The farm gave her structure and the farmer gave her respect. He never looked at her with judgment or expectation. That alone meant more than words could explain. Still, she sensed a growing closeness that made her uneasy. She did not want to lose what she had found, but she also feared hoping for too much. One afternoon, while repairing a fence together, tension finally surfaced. The farmer struggled with a stubborn wire and she stepped closer to help. Their hands brushed by accident. It was brief, harmless, but both of them froze. The moment passed quickly, yet it left a strange silence behind. Later that evening they sat apart, both lost in thought. The air felt heavier than usual. Finally, the farmer spoke. He said he wanted to be clear. He told her that his help came without hidden meaning. He respected her and her space, and he wanted her to feel safe, not confused. She listened carefully, her eyes steady. When he finished, she thanked him for saying it out loud. She admitted that she too had been afraid of misunderstanding his kindness. She explained that her past had taught her to be cautious, even when something felt good. Speaking honestly lifted a weight from both of them. After that conversation, their bond changed, but it did not break. In fact, it became stronger. They learned to move forward with clearer boundaries and deeper trust. The woman felt relieved knowing she was not expected to be anything other than herself. The farmer felt peace knowing he had not caused her harm by staying silent too long. Still, life does not pause for clarity. One morning, a letter arrived at the farm. It was addressed to the woman. She had not received mail in a long time, and her hands shook as she opened it. The letter came from someone connected to her past, offering a chance to rebuild a life she had once lost. The words were careful, but the meaning was clear. There was a path forward beyond the farm. She did not say anything right away. She folded the letter and carried it with her throughout the day. The farmer noticed her distance but did not ask. He sensed that something important was happening and chose patience. That night, she finally spoke. She showed him the letter and explained what it meant. It was an opportunity but also a risk. Leaving meant facing old fears. Staying meant safety but also uncertainty about the future. She said she did not know what choice to make. The farmer listened quietly. His heart felt heavy but his voice stayed steady. He told her that whatever she chose, it had to be for herself. He said that the farm would always remember her kindness, but it could not decide her future for her. His words hurt more than she expected, not because they were unkind, but because they were true. For the first time, she realized that what she truly needed was not protection, but belief in her own strength. The days that followed were filled with quiet preparation. She did not leave right away. She walked the fields one last time, fed the animals she had grown attached to, and thanked the farmer for every small lesson he had shared. He watched her with mixed emotions, proud of her growth and saddened by the thought of her absence. On her final evening, they sat together as they always had, watching the sky change colors. There were no long speeches, no promises, just understanding. She told him that his kindness had helped her remember who she was. He told her that her presence had reminded him that life could still surprise him. When morning came, she packed her few belongings. The farmer walked her to the edge of the road. They stood there for a long moment, neither rushing. Then she turned and walked forward, carrying more than she arrived with. The farmer watched until she disappeared from sight. As he returned to the farm, the silence felt different. It was quieter but not empty. He knew that what they had shared was real and meaningful, even if it was not meant to last forever. Some connections are not meant to be kept but remembered. And in that understanding, both of them found a new kind of strength, one built not on need, but on respect, honesty, and the courage to let go. The farm felt different after she left. The farmer noticed it the very first morning. The air was the same, the animals waited as usual, and the sun rose without delay, yet something was missing. The quiet no longer felt peaceful. It felt wide and unfamiliar, like a room with one chair taken away. He went through his routine slowly. He fed the animals, checked the fences, and cleaned the yard, but his movements lacked their old rhythm. Many times he turned his head as if expecting to see her nearby, listening or offering help. Each time he remembered that she was gone. The memory did not bring sharp pain, but a deep, steady heaviness. Days passed, then weeks. Life continued because it always does. The farmer learned to accept the silence again, but it was not the same silence he had known before. This one carried memories. Sometimes, while sitting outside in the evening, he replayed small moments in his mind. Her quiet laugh, her careful way of speaking, the way she listened as if his words truly mattered. He wondered often if she was doing well. He did not know where she had gone exactly, only that she had chosen to move forward. He hoped the world was kinder to her than it had been before. He hoped she remembered that there was at least one place where she had been safe and respected. One afternoon, while cleaning the old storage room, he found something she had left behind. It was a small cloth she had used to cover a basket. It smelled faintly of soap and dust. He held it in his hands for a long time, unsure what to do with it. Finally, he folded it neatly and placed it on a shelf, not as a reminder of loss, but as proof that what they shared had been real. As time went on, the farmer noticed a change within himself. He spoke more when neighbors passed by. He asked questions instead of keeping conversations short. He found himself more patient, more open. The woman had not only filled a space in his life, she had opened a door he did not know existed. Meanwhile, the woman faced her own challenges. The world beyond the farm was not easy. Old fears returned and doubts followed her steps, but something inside her had changed. When she felt weak, she remembered the quiet strength of the farmer. When she felt unseen, she remembered how he had listened without judgment. She found work slowly, starting with small tasks. She learned to trust again, step by step. Some days were hard, but she no longer felt completely alone. The farm lived in her memory as a place where she had been more than a passing shadow. Months later, a letter arrived at the farm. The farmer recognized the handwriting at once. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. The letter was simple. She wrote about her new life, her struggles, and her small victories. She thanked him again, not just for the food or shelter, but for treating her with dignity when she needed it most. He read the letter twice, then a third time. A quiet smile touched his face. He did not rush to reply, but when he did, his words were honest and warm. He told her the farm was still standing, the animals still stubborn, and the sunset still beautiful. He told her he was glad she had chosen herself. Their letters did not come often, but when they did, they carried comfort rather than longing. There were no expectations, no promises. Just two people acknowledging the role they had played in each other's lives. Years later, the farmer grew older. His steps slowed, and his hands carried the marks of long work. Yet his heart felt fuller than it had in his younger days. He understood now that kindness does not always stay, but it always leaves something behind. The woman, too, carried forward what she had learned. She helped others when she could, often in quiet ways. She understood that sometimes all a person needs is to be seen, not saved. Their lives moved in different directions, but they remained connected by a moment in time when one simple act changed two paths. The farmer had given food, thinking it was enough. He had not known she was hungry for something deeper. In the end, both of them learned the same truth. Real help is not about control or possession. It is about respect, patience, and letting people grow in their own time. And sometimes the smallest kindness leaves the longest echo. That was their story. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. And because it was real, it mattered.